Most of us think we are good listeners, but in real conversations, we often prepare our answer, give advice too quickly, or judge before we truly understand. This is the main problem behind Deep Listening by Emily Kasriel. This book is built on one powerful idea. People do not only need answers, they need to feel heard. In this video, we will explore how deep listening can improve conversations with family, friends, colleagues, and even people we disagree with. We will talk about presence, curiosity, silence, reflection, and healthy boundaries. So, before we ask, what should I say? Maybe we should ask, am I really listening? Hello, I'm Alan, and welcome to SpeakingPanel. Today, we are reviewing Deep Listening book by Emily Kasriel. Let's begin. Have you ever been speaking and sensed that the other person was only waiting for you to finish so they could give their own answer? Or have you ever been upset and instead of being heard, you were immediately advised, corrected, or judged? Many relationships do not break because there are too few words. They break because there is too little real listening. Deep listening argues that listening is not automatic. It is an active practice. Today, we are going to learn how to move forward from surface level hearing to deep listening so that in family, work, friendship, and even serious disagreement, the other person can feel seen, heard, and understood. For example, a child says, "I don't like school," and the parent instantly replies, "Not again." A response has been given, but the real message underneath may still be unheard. So, before we learn the method, we need to understand why something that seems as simple as listening becomes so difficult in real conversations. Why real listening is harder than we think. Real listening means hearing the meaning beneath the words, not only receiving sound. The biggest enemy of listening is the rush to respond. Most of us assume that because our ear works, we are listening. But in practice, our mind is often somewhere else. We are preparing a reply, judging, looking for a solution, or waiting for the other person to make a mistake so we can prove our point. Deep listening begins with a hard admission. Hearing is not the same as understanding. The speaker may be using simple words, but underneath those words, there may be fear, shame, disappointed, pressure, or a need to be recognized. For example, in a work meeting, a client says, "The reports are late." If you immediately defend the team, you may miss the real issue. The deeper issue may be lack of trust, pressure from senior management, or reports that are technically delivered but not clear enough to use. Once we admit that listening is not automatic, the first step is to create a space where the speaker feels safe enough to say what really matters. Create a space. Before content, create safety. Deep listening does not happen in an atmosphere of threat, hurry, judgment, or distraction. Creating safety does not mean being endlessly soft. It means understanding first, deciding later. Before a serious conversation begins, the space has to be prepared. Space is not only a quiet room or a phone turned face down. It is the feeling that the speaker will not be judged, mocked, interrupted, or fixed too quickly. A good conversation can begin with one simple sentence. "I want to understand what happened. I'm not in a rush." That sentence can lower the other person's defensive system and invite a more honest story. For example, a driver has repeated speeding violations. If the meeting begins with, "Why did you break the rule?" the first response will probably be defense. If it begins with "I want to understand the root conditions and the pressure you were under that way," you are more likely to get real information. After listening, the rule and consequence can still be clear. But the space is not only external. If the listener is full of anger, fear, or judgment, that inner state will damage the conversation. So the next step is listening to yourself first. Listen to yourself first. Steady yourself before listening to another person. The quality of our listening depends on the state we bring into the conversation. Self-awareness before the conversation prevents emotional hijacking during the conversation. We do not enter conversations with an empty mind. We bring fatigue, fear, old memories, pride, irritation, assumptions, and hidden expectations. If we do not notice these before the conversation, they will show up anyway as defensiveness, impatience, interruption, or a sudden sharp sentence. Listening to yourself first means asking, what am I feeling right now? What am I afraid might come up? Am I grounded enough to truly listen? This is the internal space that helps you stay steady when the conversation becomes difficult. For example, your partner says they are upset. If you enter with the thought, "Here we go, another criticism," even a calm sentence may sound like an attack. If you first notice that you are tired and sensitive, you are more likely to pause and hear better. Once you have created some inner steadiness, the next step is to stay present inside the conversation, not only physically, but with your full attention. Be present. Your body is here. Your attention must be here too. Presence is full attention to the moment without rehearing a reply or mentally escaping. Presence lets the speaker feel that this moment matters to you. Presence in deep sleeping means the speaker feels that you are really here, not half looking at your phone, not nodding mechanically, not waiting with a ready-made answer. Presence shows up in small things. You breathe more slowly, you do not rush, you do not interrupt, and when your mind wanders, you return. Deep listening is not about being perfect. It's about returning again and again to a person in front of you. For example, a friend talks about a professional failure while you check messages and say, "Yes, I understand," verbally. You are responding. Humanly, they may still feel alone. Presence looks more like putting the phone down, softening your attention, and saying, "Go on, I'm listening." When you become present, you can begin to release the need to control the conversation and become genuinely curious. Be curious. Ask questions, but do not interrogate. Curiosity is the genuine desire to understand the speaker's word, not to lead them toward your preferred conclusion. A good question invites, a bad question traps. Most of us think we are curious, but in many conversations we are only looking for confirmation of what we already believe. Deep curiosity means admitting that we may not know the whole story. The difference between a good question and a bad question is not only grammar, it is intention and tone. A question can open the speaker or it can push them into defense. For example, in a romantic relationship, someone says, "I have been distant lately." A defensive question is, "So you do not want me anymore?" A better question is, "I want to understand where this distance started and what it feels like for you." The second question is still difficult, but it's not an attack. Curiosity is not only verbal. The body, the gaze, and silence also tell the speaker whether it is safe to continue. Hold the gaze. Show with your body that you are listening. A soft gaze and a calm body presence can communicate attention and safety, but it must never become pressure. Your body either creates space or creates defense. In deep listening, the body also speaks. Relaxed shoulders, a non-judgmental face, short pauses, and a soft, steady gaze tell the speaker this moment matters. But holding the gaze does not mean staring. Some people feel uncomfortable with a long, direct eye contact. The goal is gentle attention, not pressure. You are not trying to decode the person like a puzzle. You are staying with them, so do not have to carry the moment alone. For example, when speaking with a teenager, sitting directly opposite them with intense eye contact may feel like interrogation. Sitting at a slight angle, speaking calmly, and occasionally looking away can make the space feel less threatening. After gaze comes one of the hardest disciplines for many listeners, holding silence. Often, the deeper layer appears exactly in the pause. Hold the silence. Silence is not the enemy of conversation. Silence is part of the conversation. Some of the most important words come after a pause. Do not feel the silence. Hold it. We are often afraid of silence. When the speaker pauses, we rush to fill the space with advice, a joke, an explanation, or our own story. But in deep listening, silence is an active tool. It allows the speaker thought to complete itself. Sometimes, after a short pause, the real sentence arrives, the one that would have disappeared if we had interrupted too early. For example, a child says, "Sometimes I'm afraid to sleep." If you immediately answer, "There is nothing to be afraid of," the conversation may close. If you pause and say, "Go on, I want to understand what happens when that fear comes," a deeper layer may emerge. Once the speaker has spoken and silence has had room, you need to show that you have truly heard, not by advising, but by reflecting back. Reflect back. Help the speaker hear themselves more clearly. Reflection means offering back the meaning, feeling, or pattern you heard with care and precision. Reflection says, "I'm trying to understand," not "I have analyzed you." Reflecting back is not parroting. It's not amateur therapy. It's a short, careful response that lets the speaker hear a piece of their own experience through your attention. The speaker may say, "Yes, exactly," or "No, that's not quite it." Both are useful because both make the conversation clearer. A good reflection slows the moment down and turns performance into exploration. For example, a colleague says, "I do not even know why I try so hard anymore. No one notices." A good reflection might be, "It sounds like you are not only tired, you are also feeling unseen." They may answer, "Exactly," and the real conversation begins. When reflection is done well, the conversation can move below the surface. This is where you gently invite depth without forcing it. Go deeper. Invite. Do not dig. Going deeper means gently helping the real issue become clearer without pressuring the speaker into confession or conclusion. Going deeper opens the door. It does not push the speaker through it. When the space is safe, when you are present, when silence has been held and reflection has landed, the speaker may be ready to say something more important. This is the moment to be gentle. A deep question should be an invitation, not an interrogation. Instead of asking, "So, what is your real problem?" you might ask, "What it helped to say more about that part?" Or, "What feels most important right now?" For example, a friend says, "I do not enjoy social gatherings like I used to." Instead of saying, "Are you depressed?" you might ask, "When you say you do not have the energy, is it more about being tired of people or about feeling unseen in the group?" That question gives space. It does not label. But there is an important risk here. Deep listening must not become endless tolerance, unwanted therapy, or emotional exhaustion. The final step is listening responsibly with boundaries. Listen responsibly, boundaries, safety, and care for yourself. Deep listening is powerful, but it is not limitless. It does not replace therapy, safety, law, decision-making, or boundaries. Listening means understanding, not surrendering, rescuing, or carrying everything. One of the most important parts of this book is that it does not tell us to listen to everyone, always, about everything. Some conversations are draining. Some people manipulate. Some topics need professional support. Some situations require immediate safety action before any deep conversation. Deep listening means honoring the other person's humanity without raising your own. Being emotionally available does not mean carrying everything. For example, if someone repeatedly speaks with disrespect, you can say, I want to understand what you are saying, but I will not continue with insults. If we can speak more calmly, I will stay. That is still listening, and it is also a boundary. Now we can summarize the whole book in one line. Before looking for the perfect answer, create the conditions for being heard, but do not lose yourself in the process. So, if I had to summarize deep listening in one sentence, I would say this. Deep listening is not just about hearing words. It's about creating a space where people feel safe enough to speak honesty and understand themselves more clearly. Many communication problems based on this book happen because we talk without presence, curiosity, silence, or reflection. But deep listening does not mean accepting everything, losing yourself, or allowing disrespect. Real listening includes care, but it also includes boundaries. So, in your next difficult conversation, pause and ask yourself, am I truly trying to understand, or am I just preparing my answer? Your practice for this week is simple. Have one 10-minute conversation where you do not advise, do not fix, and do not rush. Ask one honest question. Hold the silence and reflect back what you heard. Follow a speaking panel for full playlist and more book-based lessons, as our motto of this channel is learn it, live it. See you in the next video. Bye for now.